to my wood shop. Today we're going to start with a very small project. It's a coffee table for a friend of mine, Olivia. And she asked me for a small coffee table for her small apartment. And this is a piece of lumber called Panga Panga. Panga Panga is a tropical wood, and it's actually a leftover, so I bought a couple of really large slabs to make a large table. And one of these slabs was longer than I actually could fit in the car. And so I had to cut it, but still it was mine. I had to pay it, and I didn't know what to do with it until Olivia asked me for a small coffee table. And so I'm going to use this, transform it into a beautiful coffee table, and also it's like a first trial round to do something with Panga Panga, because I had never worked with that lumber before. So it's kind of like a pilot study for the large table. Let me show you how that lumber looks like. Here we have it. You see it's really dark. We have here on the outer side like white stripes. That's the outside of the tree. So you see that like the inside, once the tree grows, gets dark, and the outside stays white. So it's like the younger lumber. That's going to be pretty dark brown. That's at least what I've seen in the internet. I never used it myself before. And you see what we have also here is like a large crack through the entire center of the lumber. So I'm going to apply a couple of bow ties here. Maybe special because like this is white, so I'm going to use some white wood. Maybe put a dark stripe in between the bow tie, like make something special. A couple of these, that's going to look pretty rad. And then it's going to have some steel table legs that Olivia already bought and sent me, so that's what she wanted to have. And so it's going to be a neat small table just for like, I don't know, 2 beers or 2 coffees, nothing, you can't have like a full meal in here. And so first thing I'll have to do is to run these through the planer, you know, the story. It's really flat. I mean, it's not really, I don't think I'll have to do a lot of work on this one, but I'll run it through still to make sure it's like even height, like the thickness is completely even. And in case you're wondering, this is the large slab. I have 2 of these Panga Panga slabs. So you see how it compares. This here is black walnut. So you see it's a little bit darker. It might be a little bit darker than black walnut. Here in the background, that's Sucupira. That's another tropical wood which we'll work on another time.
First, I run the slab through the planer. Then I cut pieces of elm to prepare bow ties. And some thin pieces of Panga Panga scrap wood. Now I glue the pieces of Panga Panga in between 2 thicker pieces of elm. Here I cut the ends of the slab with a circular saw to get straight edges. Once the glued together pieces are dry, I run them through the planer. With a miter saw, I cut these pieces in 2. With a pencil, I draw bow ties on the wood and cut these with a bandsaw. Now I clean the bow ties with a belt sand. Toy around with the bow ties to figure out where they will look nice. With a pencil, I mark them onto the tabletop. I use hand carving knives to cut the bow tie holes into the wood. I put wood glue on the bow ties and hammer them into the holes. Once the glue is dry, I remove excess with a hand planer and an orbital sand. Now I tape the bottom side of the tabletop with water-resistant tape to apply epoxy resin. I prepare a chipboard with finishing wax to prevent leaking epoxy resin to stick to the board. I mix my epoxy resin and add some white coloring to it. I use the white epoxy to fill all cracks and holes. With a heat gun, I remove air bubbles. Once the epoxy dried, I remove all tapes. With a circular saw, I cut off a small piece of the edge. Now I use the orbital sander to remove epoxy excess. Wear a mask so you don't inhale toxic epoxy dust. I now sand both sides of the tabletop with 100 grit paper. And the same for the edges. With a router, I make the edges round. Now I use the brush to clean up the live edges. Turns out the Panga Panga live edges have tons of splinters, so I decided to sand them carefully. Now it's time to figure out where the table legs will go and drill holes for the screws. I will name this table Shell. With a router, I carve out a hole on the backside of the table for the name tag. And I pour some epoxy resin on the name. With a 180 grit paper, I sand all edges to remove rough spots. Then I sand the upper side of the tabletop with 120, 180 and 240 grit paper. Now I clean the backside with mineral spirits. And I apply one layer of mineral oil. I do the same for the upper side of the table. Watch how this table comes to life. That's it. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Hope you like it too. And certainly hope Livia likes it. See you later.